Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, everyone. How you guys doing this New Year? Hope you guys are good. It's another beautiful Sunday. Oh wow, I look so much like Daddy. Okay, thank you. Mr. Wally James, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, everyone, Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah, tell your friends, tell your enemies that we are live today again. Tell your protagonists and antagonists that we are live today. Let's see. Where is Yetunde Mama Tuzi? Where is the lawyer Sheyi Bisiri? Where are my co-speakers? Oh, that one. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. The crying man, Abi, the crying VP, Abi. We'll join. Where is she? Yetunde, please join. Yetunde is not able to join. No. Oh, can she join? Thank God.
Hello, everybody.
Last week, the powers that be did not want you to join.
They didn't because I was like, they didn't want me to. The universe was
But this week, we have done it. We have made sure that you join.
Yes.
We are waiting on Barrister Bisiri to join us. Okay, I think he's just joined us now. Let him send in a request so we can accept him, because I have something that we are going to laugh about. I was laughing when I was watching it on TV.
Oh.
I think you may be aware, but
God will wipe away all our tears.
Amen. I mean, good day, sir.
Both the fake ones and the real ones.
Good day, sir.
Good day. Is it that close in now? Is it that cold in Alabama?
No, it's
you're in Virginia.
It's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah. Look at how sunny it is in Texas. But only we are enjoying our sun, right?
We're having a wonderful time. We're having a good time.
Weather is fantastic.
We're happy as Larry. All right. Before we even start our program today, because once I'm done with this, I'm heading to the airport. I have news for you guys. I have news for you guys. Did you see one of the potential vice presidents that was crying on national TV?
No.
He was crying. He said they were abusing his daddy and mommy. You're laughing, Abi.
But if you ask Ashiwaju what Ashiwaju's eyes have seen in the past 2-3 years on top abuse.
Even Ashiwaju himself mentioned it that he doesn't go to social media again. That because they abused him, that he doesn't want him to have blood pressure. He doesn't want to be angry. So he stopped looking at social media. So he's not going to be the first person or the last person that this is going to happen to. It's something that unfortunately comes with election. Doesn't make it right that we attack people's family and all that. Even we that we are not running for office, just for the mere fact that we support a candidate and we have advocate for that candidate. People have literally sent me messages, DM me messages, and Shettima for me, for my family, for my children, which I know is going to their generation, to the 100th generation unborn. So, but him now going on TV and crying about it and not actually using that platform to say, yeah, this is very hurtful, but I'm going to say for our own supporters and any supporters out there, don't do this. They can't feign ignorance that their candidate, their candidates, their supporters are bullying people. They've told Obi this several times, and he's aware of that happening. Their supporters are constantly bullying anybody that they can bully. So they're coming out and being hypocritical and being this hypocrisy, and that is what kills me about these two people and their supporters too, because they speak from both sides of the mouth. And and I don't like hypocrisy. That cry to me is just somebody trying to manipulate and trying to play the victim when they are actually the victimizers. That's my rant for today.
But it just shows that they are weak leaders.
Yeah.
That's just
I will tell you something, because that a friend of mine once told me. He said, Ayodeji, I know you have a political ambition in the future. He said, one thing you must never do is that you should never cry on national TV, especially in Nigeria, because Nigerians will see you as weak. And you just made that
it is the way it is.
Now.
You just made this now. It's weakness. And even look at us on Daddy Freeze when we do see the amount of abuse that they write under those things. Last week, I was just reading one like this. I said,
besides the abuse, things that they cannot say to you, that you are even male, that you are a male participant. They say a lot of derogatory things to me, that I'm a woman. They say so many things. I mean, and I've actually had to send you to Daddy Freeze. This is just it's not acceptable. Even on another person's platform, like Kelly's platform, I was so angry because the fool that was making noise, John, the fool actually did all that, and Kelly had to actually reach out to me and apologize, because I told him, I said straight up, this is why I don't like coming on your platform, because there are so many people here that will be saying derogatory things to women on your platform. Not that he encourages it to be fair to Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly is always quick to call them out and say, no, I'm not going to let you do that on this platform. But these people still come and do stuff like that. It is not acceptable in whatever shape or form. But then my limit, I can be nice to a limit. So when I now respond back in kind and my voice, and I raise my voice and I cuss you out and cuss your papa and your mama, and you're now saying, oh, but she said she should not cuss. That's because you've pushed me to a limit. No matter how nice a woman is, she still has some kind of mental problem that they've not fixed in her father's house. So let's just continue our day. I greet you, my auntie Jade.
Before we switch over, I'll just say one last thing. I have been one of the most abused commenters supporting Ashiwaju, and even till yesterday, someone still shape way for me. So they come, they send it, they do this, they do that. But you know one thing that I always do? I will not look at their page and I'll be saying, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, like I feel pity for them. So, and there's one thing that Mike Tyson said. Mike Tyson said, and I quote, "When my ego is not affected, why should I be angry? Why should I be mad at you? When my ego is not affected, why should I be mad at you? Because I try to put these people and myself. Okay, what is the comparison? I'm not trying to be braggadocious or be prideful or anything, because I know this is going to go on everywhere and everything. But I'm like, Rich. If I see my mates, then I can go one-on-one. Oh, you affected my ego. Let's go. Yeah. I will tackle you back. This is not just about what we are doing politically and politically, even in your daily lives. If you look at people that say some certain things at you, is it affecting my ego? Who is this person? Is this person up to par with me? If the person is not up to par, you just move on, Jari. They've called me out. They've called me out. They've called me and they shouted at me. I did not respond to the person. They still send me DM. Why are you not responding to it? Go and I just laugh.
In fact, you would think Bogoli is Sheyi Tinubu, the kind of curse and the abuse. Like maybe Bogoli is Ashiwaju's first child. That's why they are cursing him like that. Because I don't even know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the truth is that we are all just saying what we think is right, which is what we think is right, and you have a choice whether to take it or not. But if you now go out there to cause people, to call them names and all that, when they are actually not running for an election, it doesn't make sense. And I know most of these people, If they see me face to face, they cannot say a word to me, you know, but it's okay. It's okay. They can hide behind their phones.
That's fine. Yeah, well,
but we know that we have Nigeria's best interest at heart, and we just believe that that is the man.
Okay, we've had so let's move forward. About 10 minutes of rants and bants. I wanted us to just get that out because it's the new year, and then we can move forward. Now, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, everyone, wherever you may be hearing us. This is the Tinubu Shettima APC PCC 2023 Diaspora Directorate Pitch the Plan series that happens every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Nigerian time. And here we basically talk about the renewed hope. It's a 80 to 82 page document. And in this particular document, it outlines all of the goodies that Ashwaju is promising us should he attain power May of 2023. Now, what we do here on this program is to explain, because we have a lot of people that may not have the time, you know, to actually read through 80 pages of 80 pages, you know, an 80-page document and all of that. You know, but today we will talk on education, and we have myself, Ayodeji Bakare, popularly known as Bongoli, DJ Bongoli. I have Mama Tuzi Yetunde Yusuf, who is our education expert, and we also have Barrister Oluseyi Besuriyu, which is our all-rounder. And we always have him here because whatever we say, it is the likes of Barrister Sheyi Besuriyu that would write it and put it into law, or explain it, or execute it, because he's on the judiciary side. So people like Barrister Sheyi Besuriyu are very important, because you can speak all the English in the world. You can put all of the mechanisms in place, but if you don't have the right regulations, you don't have the right policies, it's zero. It won't work. All right. Without further ado, how we start this program, I will typically read from the manifesto, and if you go to page 41, that is where we have education. It starts on education, and basically what I try to do is we read from the manifesto, and when we read from the manifesto, then we begin to take those topics or the little bullet points, bit by bit, piece by piece. We explain, we go through them, and after that, we then have time to ask questions, and then people will be able to ask questions related to education. Today is the day for education. So without further ado, we know we have educational problems, and I would say in Nigeria, for example, in order to develop our HDI, our Human Development Index, there are three things that we need that should be involved: the health, education, and the standard of living. So this is one of them, which is education, which is very key. Madam Yetunde, I don't know if you can just give us 2 minutes as to where we are in education before I begin to read what the Ashwaju administration plans to reform, and secondly, what their plans are. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Sorry you had to endure my ranting for quite a bit. I have to rant. I've been waiting for the day I will rant. But anyway, so when it comes to education in Nigeria, it's multiple factors. Funding factor. Even we as regular citizens, we have our part to play as a parent also. That's what I mean, that parents, not necessarily that just anybody. So parents particularly, but mostly government. We are lacking so many things that can make us be competitive in the world of education. We don't have enough infrastructure in place. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about whether the school or the teachers or even funding to help our school thrive, to help us compete globally. We are lacking those things. Gone were the days when our days of our fathers and our grandfathers, that they had all these amenities in place. But we also have to put in perspective that the days of our grandparents, we were under colonial rules and things were done differently then. Unfortunately, decades of neglect of our educational system has finally come home now. Everything has boiled down to our kids not really being competitive. I know that people, a lot of times when we're talking about education in Nigeria, we like to always talk about the tertiary institution, but that is really, yes, ASU is on strike and all that, but even the basic foundational education, which is our primary and secondary school, is really nothing to write home about. The Obasanjo administration, they had the universal basic education that they tried to do. How many people were actually covered? It's not about having programs and initiatives. It's about the implementation of that initiative. What are the things you are putting in place to make sure that all kids are captured? So if I don't even go to the federal level, on a state level, because the thing is, when we talk about education, it's not just the federal government. It's a combination of both federal, state, and local government. But federal is involved in all our schools. They are all, majority of them are all federally funded schools. They still get some benefit from government, but states have its own part to play, just the same way we have it all around the world. In the United States, federal government of the United States only contributes about 3 or 6% to their education. Then the states add to it. That's why you can see US might have 10% or 11%, but all that funding is not coming from the federal government. It's both, it's combination of federal, state, and local. That's where the funding for education is coming from. But their federal government really is not up to anything. It's actually about 4% or something. So it's not. In Nigeria's case, the federal can add money, but the state is not doing its part. Unfortunately for we the citizens, but fortunately for our emperor governors, because our governors in Nigeria are emperor. They are more powerful than our president. That is the reality. Unfortunately for us, but fortunately for them, Nigerians only see the president. We don't think about our governors. We don't hold them accountable for anything. Because if we do hold them accountable, they will know to put their own part in to make education attractive and affordable and accessible to our citizens. So how can we fix this? First, it starts with the federal government taking its responsibility, the state ready to take its responsibility, the local government taking its own responsibility, and you as a parent taking responsibility for your child. So in Lagos State, if I want to talk about Ashiwaju.
I said 2 minutes, you have done 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll talk more. I think Mongoli said,
I haven't told you to even halt, but I was like, let me not cut her off in a train of thought. So she won't come for me. Bongoli is always cutting me off. If I talk, always cutting me off. So now, let us now move forward. But I want to appreciate you. Thank you very much for giving us a brief synopsis as to what our current educational situation is, at this time. And like you rightfully said, in these advanced countries that we compare in an unfair manner Nigeria to or Nigeria with, they actually budget less for education as compared to Nigeria. But, however, their regional governments and their state governments actually play more specific roles in fixing their educational sector or funding the educational sector. Also, private sector investments in the educational sector also, because we have to look, whenever we talk about funding, investments in Nigeria, and we talk about private sector involvement in Nigeria, one thing you have to realize also is that can the people have the purchasing power to pay for these goods and or services that these private sectors are bringing or putting in place? What will the private sector gain from all of these investments that they're putting in education, for example? So the Ashwajo administration is saying, you know what, private investors, you can come. I'm going to give you an enabling environment. I'm going to give you the right tax incentives. I'm going to give you all of the right policies and regulations. You're not going to exploit our people anyway, and everybody will be happy, pretty much. And most importantly, improve the purchasing power of every Nigerian by empowering them. We've been talking about, we started with security, now we're already in healthcare. Talk about security, we talk about agriculture, the economy, talk about agriculture, you talk about power, you talk about oil and gas, you talk about healthcare, you talk about transportation, you talk about a whole lot of things. Talk about a whole lot of things. That is why we're where we are today. Now, moving forward, the Tinubu administration will reform the education sector by focusing on the following indices: quality, access, funding, management, effectiveness, and competitiveness. Yes. The reforms we institute will be based on 3 objectives: ensuring an abundance of qualified and capable educators, creating safe and conducive learning environments, and improving educational outcomes in Nigeria. And I will start with the first one that it talks about here, educational infrastructure. And then it says, we will invest in the infrastructure of our educational institutions and provide adequate resources that improve the educational environment in which our children are taught. Our policies will alleviate classroom overcrowding and ensure that new schools have adequate space. We will make sure federally funded primary and secondary schools are safe, comfortable, and sufficiently equipped as facilities for teaching and learning. Like you said, Madam Yetunde, you said not just focusing on tertiary alone, but also primary and secondary school education. We'll prioritize the use of computers, internet services, and other technology-based learning resources in schools. So I'm going to switch it. I'm going to switch this a little bit. Madam Yetunde, you're not going to say anything. What is it, sir?
So I just wanted to say that the emphasis on computer is very important. And the reason I believe that is important is the idea of typing. When I got into my master's degree course here, the first challenge I had was how to type my assignments. And I had to, you know, in Nigeria, you just find some typist somewhere, you pay them, they do the typing. But here you have to do it yourself. And because of that, I had to go buy Mavis Bacon software, upload it on my computer, and I was practicing minimum of 4 hours for 8 months before I could get up to 40 words per minute. Now I'm about almost 60 words per minute. But my point is that what the world is moving away from writing manually. Everything has to be typed. And all these kids now here in the United States, they start typing lessons very early, you know, and I think, and you can't do that without a computer. So we need something of this nature to be introduced into the system from the basic age. You don't have to give it to one child at a time. It could be a lab where they come in, maybe typing period. They come, they do all the typing, everybody has one, and they go home. All they need to do is try it every day, and you have a better workforce for our institutions, industries, and all that. As they graduate and they go into our institution, they have the skill of typing, and we move that gradually. So the computer part and the internet services and all that.
To actually buttress your point, it is important, and that is already happening in Lagos State. Like Babajide Sanwo-Olu's administration right now, there's something called Eco Excel. If you have your computer next to you or on your phone, you can just Google Eco Excel. You'll be able to see that. As a matter of fact, the interview that he had recently, he mentioned it, he talked about it. And whereby it's just like what my daughter does here, that they are education, their curriculums and everything is online. They are partnering with Google Classroom. They are doing that actually with Google Classroom, so that way these kids can have their assignments digitally. The teachers, we have digital access. They are giving them the iPad or the pad for it, the tablets for it, to be able to manage this curriculum. That way they can plan their schedule ahead of their curriculums ahead of time. They can grade remotely. These kids can go online. They will have access to Google Classroom for kids. They'll have access to like my kids now, they have access to like Epic Books, so they can read books online, digital libraries, so they will have access to that. And they are trying, the end goal is to give all kids access to the digital device, so they will be able to do their assignments on it. They will be able to, so Lagos is already doing something like that right now. They have it currently ongoing. And if we want to talk about, I know that Bongoli mentioned the issue of funding, which is accurate when it comes to private funding. To give you an example, you are aware, you know Buckies. I know Bongolis know Buckies. I don't know if Lawyer Shei, you know about Buckies.
Buckies is not from Texas. It's not from Texas.
Buckies is one of the biggest gas station / convenience store that we have in Texas. In fact, it's everywhere. You know, Buckies is one of the big donors to my school, Texas A&M. Aggie is one of the big distance. In fact, recently they just announced they are donating additional $50 million to fund a new program at Texas A&M targeted towards entrepreneurship, especially retail industry, because one industry that is dying in America is the service industry. So, and Bucky's is into service. So they are actually targeting that. So when people can actually go into that kind of entrepreneurial program, they can come out, they have jobs in service industry, because, you know, one thing we know is our kids, we always want to, undergraduate, they ask you what you want to do. You just want to, we are not thinking about what we are getting from the job, to be accomplished or something. We are just thinking of, well, I want to work here just because of the prestige or the name of the company, or they're going to call me a doctor. Not necessarily because it's actually a job down the line that you will enjoy to do. So it's funding. It has to have both the federal, state, local, private sector driven. And I think Ashwaju actually articulated that in his memo, and we'll talk more about it.
I will get to that. I will get to that because as regards the educational infrastructure, funding is very, very important. And Ashwaju speaks on how he's going to get funding, but yes, we'll definitely get there. But what he's saying in educational infrastructure is what he's looking out for here is that he wants to build more classrooms. He wants to reduce overcrowding. These are the kind of initiatives that have been done or performed in Lagos State.
Yes.
Moving forward, I think the next one is accreditation standards and curriculum. I am not going to read this per se, because when I look at our curriculum in Nigeria, we still follow this curriculum from what our colonial masters gave to us to some certain extent. Our curriculums are somewhat conforming.
As usual.
Not giving us the ability to critically think. It is a conforming type of constitution. A conforming type of curriculum. So Ashwaju is saying, you know what? I'm going to have what's it called? A committee that is always going to be looking at how to revolutionize our curriculum in both primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Because I remember my schooling in Nigeria, curriculum was pretty much the same. Nothing changed. We are not following the world trend as regards curriculum, because things and times are changing. So what are your thoughts, Lawyer Bisiri, on changing curriculum, or will I say updating and or upgrading curriculum?
Yeah, I think it's essential. And in the last paragraph of that section, it mentioned the curriculum shall promote national unity and pride. Nigerian history will be reintroduced to our classroom. Indigenous language courses will be compulsory for all children. through the completion of secondary
now,
school.
hold on,
I
sir.
think that is very important.
Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Pause. It was the previous administration, before the Buhari administration, that removed history.
Yes, that's correct.
And just 3-4 months ago, I think 3 to 4 months ago, the Buhari administration is reintroducing history into our curriculum, but not on a large scale. Now, Ashwaju is now saying, yes, I'm going to make sure that this thing really comes to fruition across board. So continue, sir.
Yes, across board. So the reason why I say that is that recently when I went back home, one of our, the artisans that work on my parents' house and all that, I saw him, I was at his house and I was just saying hello. And the grandchildren, one of the grandchildren, was living with them, and the old mama that did not go to school was speaking one kind of English to this child that obviously is not correct. The child is responding the same kind of terrible English to grandma, and I couldn't figure out where this is beneficial. When we were growing up, our grandparents speak Yoruba to us. We understand Yoruba. It's easy. And don't come and go, something like that. And I was like, why? What is going on? So I saw the parent, like, is there Yoruba in your curriculum? I think you should encourage grandma to be speaking Yoruba to this child. Let the child do the English in school where it is actually correct. And the mom said, no one saw Yoruba in school, one more, one share. I said, what? That is out. So my point is that these things are important. Every region needs to reintroduce the local language. It is identity destroying method to remove that. And when they even speak the English, is terrible. So they are not, they don't have they're not improving their local one. They don't know how to write it. And the one that they are trying to imitate, they are imitating the bad and downgraded version of it. So they are losing on both grounds. And you have this set of kids that want to go into the university and do research. And research is about writing stuff that people will understand to use for doing other things. So it is very, very important that these things be reintroduced, because there is so much damage. You see everybody speaking all kinds of English to their kids, and you know that this is just not right. Now, if you live abroad and you speak English, that is fine, if that is what they speak there. My brother lives in Germany. His wife is Romanian. The children speak Romanian, they speak German, they speak English.
What about Yoruba?
All three.
What about
and
Yoruba?
He tries to introduce Yoruba. And when they speak Yoruba, when grandma calls, they respond in a way, they say something, So there is no way for us to evolve the way we are now if, like you said, the archaic colonial mentality is still being passed down. And we need the history of our people. Let the Igbos know who their founding fathers are. Let the Yorubas know who their founding fathers are. Let the Hausas know who they are, and let us bring them together in a federal level, how Nigeria came to be. People should know that. It is important in American history. Every child knows that, and it creates an identity. Now, that is why, we were talking about the topic of our daddy freeze and all that, and we were saying some people on social media say things that are demeaning, that destroys the image of Nigeria. They don't have a national identity from the get-go. They have no reason to love the country, because even from the education they gain education that is transferred based on the image of Britain and America. And if they go out there, they have no civil desire to protect the image of Nigeria. So everything has to start from education, from the parents. And I will also talk about one other part of when we get to parents' contribution. I will also talk about something like that when we get to that, because that really bothers me.
All right.
Can I quickly say something let me quickly say something to add to that.
Only 1 minute. Only 1 minute.
I promise. I will promise 1 minute.
Your time pass now.
The curriculum as it is, I'm glad about what they want to do. If there's one thing I think that we need to encourage, which used to be, although they were not part of the curriculum, putting the curriculum together, the stakeholders when it comes to education of our kids, the stakeholders is not just the teacher, it's the parents are part of the stakeholders. And one thing I did see there is about the governing body that will be in charge of our education system for primary and secondary schools in Nigeria, that will be on a local level, which is like what we have here, which is the board of education for the city. Because in the US, at least our own is different, the education system.
To that, you see, we are going to that. You see, that's why I said 1 minute. I know what I was saying. So Nashwadu talked about that extensively. This one is just curriculum. You have started again.
On curriculum, I kind of like the fact that we are going to have our language, because if there's a group that I admire a lot in the United States, is the Hispanic community. And the Chinese community. And the Chinese community and the Hispanic community, I respect them a lot. They speak their language to their kids at home because the kids are learning English in school. So why should they be teaching them the English at home? So, and so in my home now, my house, my kids, we speak Yoruba at home. They do English in school. And of course, we try to remind my mom, because my husband is like, no, they need to be able to speak Yoruba. We remind my mom, like, stop speaking English to these kids. Speak Yoruba. So they might not be able to speak Yoruba to me, but they understand. We try to teach them, like, we say it in Yoruba because I want you to understand, because I don't want you to be like their sister in Nigeria now. Seriously, literally after secondary school, we had to, my mother-in-law had to hire a private teacher to teach her how to speak Yoruba. How do you live with your grandmother? Though agreed, she's educated and she just encourages the English, whatever. That you have to now learn Zinat can speak Yoruba better than Pelumi. Pelumi doesn't even, in fact, she's just starting to understand Yoruba now, and she lives in Yoruba. She lived with her grandmother. It's not something that it's something of pride. Oh, my child can speak English. Every kid can speak English if they go to school. What you should want your child to be able to do is to speak Igbo, is to speak Yoruba, and to be fair. I respect the Hausa people in Nigeria because they keep to the tradition and they speak Hausa to their kids. So the Northerners still speak the language more than the Igbo people or the Yoruba people. I feel like even the Igbo people even try. The Yorubas are the worst. They don't even, with English, it's all right. You still be speaking it with the correct. But
now
anyway,
I'm going to shift to teacher training, because yesterday I want you to talk on teacher training. Because there was a time I was watching an interview where they called, I don't know if it's the Kaduna State Commissioner for Education or somebody working in that ministry, a top guy. And they said that when they did some studies as to what is the most important or the biggest problem they are having in education in Kaduna State at the time, they said, is it funding? Is it teacher training? Is it a lack of infrastructure? What is it? And what stood out the most, contrary to public opinion, is teacher training. So the Ashwaju administration is saying, you know what, when it comes to teacher training, we are going to go on a comprehensive and extensive training. And we are going to keep on trying to certify and recertify our teachers. So Yetunde, what are your thoughts on this Ashwaju plan? And also, you said professional development programs also. Yes, I think that was the last statement that was made here, that was said here.
I'm actually pulling up my daughter's school year calendar. I want to count something. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's 5 days in their academic year, August to May. 5 days of those, 5 days, school days, not weekend, weekday, 5 days, they don't go to school. Reason? Because their teachers have professional development day.
And that's what Ashwaju is trying to do.
So how can somebody develop another person when they are not developing themselves? And You can't give what you don't have. And as a matter of fact, even me as a nurse here, every 2 years, I just renewed my license now because end of this month it will expire. So every 2 years, we have to renew our license. And for me to do that, lawyers have to do that. I have to complete. I have to complete 20 hours, 20 continue education hours. Yes, because yes, 20 profession, 20 credit hours of continuous education that relates to my thing. And first off, I pay for that. My job doesn't cover it, so I pay that out of my pocket. Once the teachers are doing, they don't go to school, but they will still get paid because they are salaried. So they will get paid for those days because it's part of their professional development. Now, what Asiwaju is saying is, we are going to let you even get certifications you need. In fact, we will even reimburse you for some of your certifications. My job now, one of the things that is required that my job actually covered, I'm a clinical quality person. And one of the requirements was we should all get our certified quality healthcare professional. And we had to do that, and it's $500. Besides if I want to go and do the boot camp, this thing, which I didn't do. I just said I will study on my own. God, please let me pass. Don't let me fail. I don't have 500. So I just paid it. And when I passed, I submitted my stuff and it was reimbursed. I got my $500 back. But those are the kind of things they do here. When we say, oh, the teachers are good, the nurses are good, it's not because the nurses just come out of school and just work like that for 20 years, not improving themselves. To give you an example, if we know a doctor here in Alabama, Dr. Kishoto, Dr. Kishoto, you know that every Saturday they have their doctors for group with nurse practitioners too, that they share cases, like review cases to learn. That is what you do. That is what we do here. And I'm glad that the Asiwaju administration is proposing that they will have something like that so that our teachers can improve themselves, so they can impact that knowledge on our kids. They can teach our kids the right thing and the right way. They can even improve themselves too. So it's not just about the curriculum. I don't know if you already said we can talk about the pay for them, like their salary and all that, or we are coming to that. But
now let us now move into, you see that board thing you wanted to talk about. You see that board that is twisting your belly. Because why I'm saying this is because it is under the school management section of the educational under education in the manifesto, and it is going to be first of its kind in Nigeria, because you are going to have the board, not just the board on a federal level, but it's looking at the board from the local government level. So all of those primary schools, secondary schools, I'm looking at primary school and secondary schools, because state schools, maybe state, federal, or state universities or federal universities, that will have their own different boards. But by looking at it from a local from a primary and secondary school level, looking at them in the local government, and you have a board. Now, this board here are managing the schools from the curriculum aspects that we've talked about, to educational infrastructural aspects, to regulations, to policies. That is how you delegate management. Now, the ministry have their own roles to play. Now, you're not saying under the ministry we are going to have boards. I think it's a fantastic idea. Now, Madam, because your hands have been, or your mouth have been itching to talk about this board and how it works, I'm going to give you only 2 minutes to talk about it. And then, lawyer, Barrister Bisiri, you get ready, because we're going to talk about technical and vocational training. Because there was a point that was made as regards the Texas A&M Aggie investments, $50 endowment fund or investment funds, to build the entrepreneurial skill of university students, because these people are the people that will now employ these artisans. So they have to have the necessary skills and or abilities. So get ready as regards the technical and vocational aspects, why we talk about this board, so that we can understand what Asiwaju is trying to do or implement when it comes to this board.
Okay, so let me quickly say something.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay. Let me quickly say something. Nigeria, we have something already that the Buhari administration, and if I'm not mistaken, I think even under President Jonathan, they created the board already, except the difference between the board that we have now and the board that Ashwaji is proposing. The difference is that the board we have now, the governing body of it, they are from Abuja. They are not your local people. They are Abuja. They've even put politics into it and bribery and corruption into it so that you bribe somebody so they can put your name and you're part of the board and all that nonsense, Nigerian corruption factor. The difference now is that this one, it will be like election, but on a local level. So say I'm ward of local government now. They will have the board. The purpose of the board is to serve as an oversight. They will have oversight function over this our school. So government, we have the curriculum. This is what federal government Ministry of Education wants us to have in our curriculum and all that. What you can do is you can't go below the curriculum, but you can go above the curriculum. So if you think that let's add tennis to it, it will benefit our kids to add tennis. You can have tennis, but you can't go below the standard that the federal government is setting. Now, that board now, with parents living in Amu-Odofin, that their kids go to schools in Amu-Odofin, can appear before the board. They get to select who are the representatives for them. The representatives for them will be the ones governing these schools. They will be the one advocating for them when it comes to legislature, whether on the federal level, on the state level, on the local level. Amu-Odofin Board of Education members can come together and say, this is what we need. They can advocate, they can fight for their schools. The good thing about it is that the people on this board are members of your community. So if your community, if your schools are not functioning and all that, well, you might want to remove your board members and vote somebody because they have term limits. So somebody like me now can come and say, I'm campaigning, please vote for me for board. What you don't want to do is to say, I'm voting for Yetunde because she's my friend or she's my sister. When you know that Yetunde is not competent enough to go and represent your children, you have to think about your kids. Because people from Abuja cannot know what is happening now. Me, I see what my teacher, my school, my daughter's school teachers are doing if they don't go to class and all that. I see it because it's on a local level. That is the benefit of this. So government will still sponsor schools, but they will assign you now. Now this is where parents comes in. They are making you, your community, be the oversight to govern these schools, these districts, to make sure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing and advocating for you in a way. So that's the
but I will just say something here. You see, she said whatever. That's the body language there, whatever. But it's okay. I want to thank you very much for explaining this in depth. You know why? Because now you are telling the people that Ashwaju is saying, I want to make you, the parents, in charge of education in your community, in your area. You will begin to decide the future of your kids. You have the power to decide the future of your kids. I'm empowering you to, on a very professional level, on a very professional scale. These are the reasons why we do what we are doing here. Because we try to explain to the people what you read on. If you can't read the manifesto, this is what the manifesto is saying. But now let me say something that will make you people laugh a little bit about this board. I live in the Texas, Houston area to be precise. I know when I turn on my TVs, those board people, they fight too. It's war. So
they don't play. Those parents don't play.
It's what like they do. They can do election. It's another kind of presidential election. Like what person is not allowed. They'll be doing nepotism. There's so many things involved. Like
recently in the school system in around us here, I think it's whether middle school or so, they introduced as extracurricular Satan church or Satan either Satan group or Satan something. So the kids now came home and they said, oh, but you don't allow Christianity in, but you are bringing the Satan group this thing. The whole parent community, they went berserk on this school board. It got removed because they were like, you can't introduce that to our children, and it's extracurricular. So they have to leave school After that, you are teaching them about Satan, you know. So these things are important if it can be implemented and parents can contribute. Because, as I was saying, this board is important. Why? Because I was discussing with somebody on Facebook, and I had to ignore the discussion at the point. And it's about parents that go begging other people to help them pay for their children's school fees. And I tell people, I say, why will you be doing that? I said, that is wrong. I said, because what you are doing is you are creating a young set of children that are embarrassed out of school because you, the parents, have refused to go get either a lesser private school that fits your budget or take your child to the public school. And they say, oh, I can't take my children to public school. I say, but it's only rich people that can choose. If you are poor, you cannot choose where you want your kids to get their training. So but you have people that do this all the time. You know, I used to entertain that, help them out. And then I will call them, I'll say, then they come the next time. They call me, oh, God, your children. I say, they're not my children, they are your children. You know, why can't you pay now? They say, oh, it's hard time. I say, yes, it's hard time. But you should know that you want this kind of education for your kids. There are grades to it. Everyone is going to write WAEC. Everyone is going to write G2. Everyone is going to Unilag or Laspotec or whatever. But it's just the foundation that is different. If you love what you see in the bells, you need to be a millionaire to send your kids to the bells. But if you want to put your children in the bells, don't come to me to ask you to pay for that. Now, if they join this board, they can make their public school better. And they won't have a reason to be begging people and making their kids see that their parents are poor by being chased out.
And actually, that's true
for those kids. And this parents
that's true. And that is why, you know, let me quickly say this. That is why I welcome this idea, because to give you an example, in case for people that might want to not understand from the perspective or the angle of Lawyer Shea, we have, even in the Dallas area here, right? If you go to Dallas ISD, it's not comparable to Mansfield ISD or to Grapevine ISD, International Independent School District. That's the ISD. That's what it means. They are not comparable because guess what? The people that go to Grapevine or South Lake average price of a home there is over $1 million. So when the school district actually tax this parent and says, well, the board says we want all parents to start paying $100 every per year because we'll be using that for whatever in school. Dallas ISD, most of the parents there are middle to low income earners, so they might not have that extra, so they will fight it and say, no, what government is providing is what we just want government to add more money. The difference is that the private one or not semi-private can afford to pay extra to get that extra stuff, but the other ones cannot. So they won't be on the same par because the rich one can get extra tutorial this thing for their kids. They can buy all this Harvard stuff to help their kids. The other ones they can't. So this board now, it can at least put our middle to low income earners, give them opportunity because they can advocate for themselves and get things done.
I'm going to pick 2 points here as regards what the Asiwaju administration is going to achieve with this. Firstly, minimum standards. You can't go below certain standards across board, across all the 774 local governments in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yes. And second,
if they are federally funded, which they are
funded. Yeah, they're not private. They're not private. Yeah. And secondly, and most importantly, fostering unity amongst parents and fostering unity in the community at large.
Yes.
Because now you see the community speaking in one voice. Now, let's move on.
Because one other thing is that usually the community have the same either income bracket. So they know what they want. You know, they can understand that, okay, this is what I want for my kids. And you go to the board, you enforce it, And then you, as a parent, you don't have to worry to go and look for 200,000 to pay for school fees. Put your child in public school if you can afford it, and then fight for the board to increase the quality. And so one way or the other, you're getting good teachers into that school gradually. But if you just want to abandon the public school and then you want to start begging everyone to pay for your school fees, it is not done. We create bad leaders.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move forward to technical and vocational education. So I want you to speak on that. Barrister Bisiriyu, briefly, just 2 minutes, because of time is not on our side at this time. So technical and vocational education, we see that our technical and vocational education is taking a downturn in Nigeria, and we need to revive that that part of our education. So what is Asiwaju saying is going to do on that?
So I think Asiwaju is trying to stimulate more of the entrepreneurial spirit, because most of the technical and vocational students or graduates tend to set up their own small businesses. And we know that in Nigeria, in America, that small business keep the country going, you know, and mostly vocational and technical area of expertise create the smaller business, because everyone needs them. You need plumbers, you need carpenters, you need tailors, you need people that do all these things. So I think that the beauty of this is population. We have massive youth population that are just sitting somewhere that don't have where they want to go, or they are even engaged in private vocational institutions or private shops who spend the most of 3 years sending them to buy amala and egusi and washing their wives' clothes and their children this and taking their children to school and not teaching them nothing. But with this kind of program, you have something that actually that is institutionalized in a way that the enrollee of this kind of vocational and technical learning can actually get to the point of learning what they need to become entrepreneurs, not spend most of the time learning what they don't need and spend 5 years with some oga that teach them virtually nothing, and at the end they can't buy their instruments, they can't do anything, and they end up maybe spending 8 years in the training process. But with this, and we have all these young people that are hungry to get to work, if this can be increased to the level that Asiwaju wants to do, add funding to it, partner with private institutions to bring some of these people in, it is a thriving sector of the community, of the country, because people always need these services. And I believe that if it is done well,
thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to enter the fun part. But before I enter the fun part, I'm going to talk about STEM incentives, basically. And pretty much, I think it's myself and Yetunde that's like in the STEM side. Is not on the STEM. No, I won't say that, because you have a naval background, so you might have some idea also on that. STEM incentives as is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So as what you're saying, people or kids or individuals that are towing that path, we are going to have more provisions for grants, for internships, for scholarships, admissions, and employment. We're going to focus more on that. And this part of our education, the STEMs part of our education is very critical, because they are the ones that are your doctors, they are the ones that are your nurses, they are the ones that are your engineers, they are the ones that are your scientists. So there's going to be some special preference to them. He's not saying that all the other disciplines are not going to be giving good treatment. Yes, you're going to get basic treatment across board, but there's some specialization that would require more push and more funding and more encouragement because of how critical their contribution is or contributions are to the Nigerian society in general. And that is going to lead me to the final phase, which is our tertiary education. As we are all aware.
So before we go to that, can I quickly say something about the STEM?
Right.
The benefit of the STEM also, it could be exported too. Because we have so many smart people, you know, we could turn it into a export revenue source like India is doing, you know, exporting a lot of IT people. You know, if we develop so many of this, you know, there are some people that they know math without even teaching them anything about math. Like they just know the thing.
Oh, there was
Nigeria
one, sir, with all due respect, let me just chime in. There was one kid that I saw on social media that sells oranges, and this guy is doing maths at the highest level. Like, I'll say highest level because I know how to calculate with my head, like calculators and all that, but there are levels to it. I can do it, like, but there are levels. This guy is doing 256 times 747. Those kind of things. And it's selling oranges He was on social media.
And there are many of them like that they don't have opportunity, that this kind of STEM program can help bring them, increase their capability. And we can say, okay, United States needs a lot of mathematicians. We have 300. Now let's do a work program with them. They pay their taxes in America, in Nigeria. You know, they make good money. You know, they can come and there can be some kind of international agreement between Nigeria and the United States, United Kingdom, Europe, on when we bring this kind of experts and whether they can give them some kind of job opportunities, and then they can come back home. No, there are so many ways around it that if this STEM program can go to the grassroots and find all these latent talents that do not have resources to build, but you can put money into them.
Let me say something real quick, because I know that there are certain demographics in our population that can get sidelined or neglected when it comes to education, and those are the ones with special head, which I think there's information on that for them, because even STEM, we have a lot of special head students that are good with when it comes to science and
special ed. What is the meaning of special ed?
Special education. So kids that probably have some certain disability, whether blindness, they are deaf, or they are, you know, or even like maybe autism and something like that. Which I know somebody had written something about. Everybody's saying things. Who will do it? You know. This is just the reason why I would do it. And I wanted to say things last week. I didn't have opportunity. The universe conspired against me. But if there's somebody that's actually had the foresight to make sure that our education system is all-encompassing, captures everybody, no matter who you are, rich, poor, you can afford it or you cannot afford it, you are blind, you are deaf, you are whatever. It was Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because if you've not heard that about him, that is one thing he did when he was in administration. He just didn't work on primary and secondary schools and university. He did a lot when it comes to special education. We have the school of the deaf, blind and the deaf and all that in Surulere, in Ikorodu. There are schools for special education that were equipped. They hired teachers, get these kids the books that they need for the ones that are blind, the books that will help them, things to make sure that they are educated too. So if he did that 20 something years ago, what makes you now think that he won't do something? He has done it. It's not raising money through bond is not new to him. He's done it, and now even the federal government of Nigeria copied him. All states in Nigeria copy him. Yeah. If you're talking about introducing computer into education or into government institutions for efficiency, he's the first person that did that in Nigeria, not the federal government of Nigeria. He was the first person that brought the Oracle software to Nigeria to do all of that. because I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week. But so when you're saying that, oh, maybe he's just saying it, he won't do it. Well, he's the only one that actually did something, and others now followed suit, copied it, and are doing it, which is good. We want that. We want somebody that can think like that. And Lagos is, like I said earlier.
Maybe that's why it's called Ashiwaju. Ashiwaju in Yoruba means leader. First.
You know, and that is why I'm so happy that Lagos is already pioneering this Eco-Excel situation and bringing technology even for our teachers to help them with their curriculum and all that. So I personally believe that the challenge is not going to come from him wanting to do it. The challenge is going to come from our local and state government working in tandem with the federal government to achieve this. And we, the citizens, pushing our own representatives to push for good things. So,
thank you. We have one more thing to talk about, and then we're going to open the floor for questions, and we'll call it a day because of time. I'm going to speak on tertiary education, restructuring tertiary institutions. That is, we talked about boards, and we talked about curriculums, and then student loans. Now, there's something that I found out. I did some research recently. When I was reading through the action plan, I saw that the action plan made mention of Lagos State already doing student loans, Kaduna State already doing student loans. I said, what is the meaning of this? Let me go and do some research. I said, let me go and do some research. Lo and behold, guys, there is student loan in Lagos State too. It is under the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund.
Yes.
And it has all of the requirements. If you meet all of the requirements, you get the loan. Now, the Ashiwaju administration is like, oh, we want to expand this across board. We want to use that model that we have in Lagos State and expand it. Now, the Nigerian government, on the other hand, because people have come out to say, Buhari said he's going to give student loan. Why didn't he give student loan? Guys, I want you to remember something. That when the Buhari administration came in on board, Buhari administration from that time till today has met 2 economic recessions. They have met pandemic, COVID pandemic. They have met crude oil price slumps. And now they are undergoing a war. Where they are facing war now, Ukraine and Russian war. And then remember, we were bedeviled with security issues when it was coming in. Now, one thing you guys also have to realize is that when you talk about private loans, student loans and all that, it is public and private. Private give loans, public will also just support. But it is majorly a private initiative for the most part, because for people that have student loans in the Western world, you just see federal government, whatever, then you see one other company that is not under federal government that own the loans, or maybe they buy the loans from the federal government. Now, good news. There is a bill that is in the House to give student loan, to provide student loan in Nigeria. So, Madam Yetunde, I want you to also talk about this also. And
so, for the people that might be thinking that that is not true, Lagos doesn't have student loan or Kaduna doesn't have student loan, you can just Google it, you will see it there. As Kaduna one is even like very straightforward. It's KDSG, Kaduna State Government, just look for it, you will see it, and say Kaduna student loan, you see it there. And the requirements are pretty straightforward. It's just, you have to be either employed and you're applying, or the person that wants to get it for you is employed. You have to be a resident of Kaduna, just like the same thing in Lagos, or you're a resident or you're an indigent of Lagos State. And then there are certain criteria, but they are pretty straightforward things. And they are so it's a good thing that is happening, because student loan will make a big difference. It will make access better. But the most important thing that I am so looking forward to when this is finally done is not really the affordability alone. It's the fact that our schools, the whole strike of ASU, we might have some reprieve from that, because there will not be anything like, there will be ASU, but it's just the federal government is not dealing with them. They are going to, each professor will negotiate with their own employer, which is UI, Unilag, whatever. The Anambra State University will negotiate with their own, with state university, because they can charge tuition that is appropriate. They can charge fees that is actually appropriate for what they need. So the same reason I will not carry myself to go to Harvard now if I don't have scholarship. That I will say, let me sit with, even though with my MBA, what I'm learning in class is coming from Harvard. It's all the Harvard Business School reviews and everything, that the cases, the case studies and everything, it's all coming from them. But at least my school just pays portion of that. But if I want to go to where they actually made the case, now I will pay ×3 of what I paid. But the same reason, some people will not go to the school I went to, because the money that is, nobody will pay 6 figures because they want to get MBA. They will rather go to a state school. So it's going to be level mayato, you know. So it depends. So Lagos State now can say, you know what, we want the best professors and all that, we are willing to pay for them. A lot of teachers in Harvard might be making $1 million and all that, but there's the school. The school also asks for $1 million in tuition. So, you know, but at least schools can put the appropriate fee, and the federal, governments can also help with funding, with all the bond and all that, and working with providing the bulk of the support. Now, what I don't know is, which maybe I didn't read it, is that will there be requirements later on to say, okay, if you work for federal government or state government, if you're a government employee, if you work for them for 10 years, they will write off your loan like we have it here. If you're a government employee here, you work for government for 10 years, they write off your loan.
That one is not written in here, but I would think that would be part of the incentives for people to work for the federal, for people to work for the federal government, or people to work for state government. Yeah. All right. So there's another thing also that I want to chime in here, and it's part of the funding. Ashewaju is saying that he's going to sell bonds to actually fund universities also, so that people can also not pay that kind of tuition that Madam Yetune was talking about. Okay, now this is what you're supposed to pay if you are in a Footmina or if you are in a Unimate. Now, because we have this kind of funding available, then the price is going to go down a little bit. Because let us tell ourselves the truth. For the kind of education that we get in Nigeria, Nigeria pays one of the least amount worldwide. It's a fact. We don't pay enough for our education.
No, we don't.
Fine. You can say our education has its flaws. Yes. When I was in Unilag back then, I was paying 6,500 now, 6,000 naira tuition. What is that? Can you pay that anywhere around the world? Even in Switzerland, that they pay very little amount for tuition. I'm not sure that it's 6,500 naira if you calculate it. So I'd like to end with this before we start asking questions and all of that.
Can I quickly say something? 10 seconds, please. I'm actually saying this to Femi Aderogba. I asked a question about, the GTB is already. He said GTB is already offering the loan, so there's no big deal about it. The difference is that.
That's a question. So we're entering the question session. So just answer.
Okay, so the difference is this. How many people actually qualify for that GTB loan? Abi, is it not the same Nigerian banks that you want to collect ordinary personal loan? They will be telling you 35% interest rates. We need government-backed student loan that will not gouge us, that will not make it impossible for people to meet the criteria. If I got FAFSA here. In fact, I got you guys know. 2 types of loan. We have the unsubsidized, we have the Pell Grant. In fact, we have multiple. But I qualified for the unsubsidized loan, which is what the minimum you can qualify for is $20,000 they can give you per year for the school year. Then because it's not sufficient for my fees and my living expenses, everything that they always add as your estimated cost of education for the year, because they've added all those extra things, you will now get, I now asked that to apply for the unsubsidized graduate plus loan, which is like private. I can go to Salime and do that, or BOFA or Citibank or whatever. But a lot of our student loan in America are government guaranteed, government backed loans. So when you are saying we should just go to GTB, what are you going to give them as your guarantee? Your father's house? How many people have collateral to offer? You are still depriving larger percentage of Nigerian population from getting this money. And you are still going to go back into the issue of the ASU going on strike, because let's face the fact, with the rates that Nigerian population is growing at 3.6% average annually, we are going to keep, our population is going to keep ballooning, and we won't have enough resources. Government is not going to be able to continue to foot that bill. We as a citizen, we need to know that besides our primary and secondary education that is guaranteed all over the world, there's no country in the world that tertiary education is free. The countries that have them for free, they are charging income tax at the rate of 40–50% income tax rate, which we don't do in Nigeria. How many of us even pay tax to begin with? So we cannot be doing apples to we cannot be doing apples to apples. It's not apples to apples. It's not the same thing. If we want government to be solely responsible for our education and be paying everything, that's fine. But we also now have to be ready to pay 30–40–50% of our income, and we have to pay that income tax.
All right.
Because we all pay tax ahead. So just
FYI. Very much. Who else has any other question on education before we call it a day? Because I have to go now. Barrister Bisiri, there was something you wanted to say. So while you're saying what you want to say, we'll just wait for anyone that has any question and on education, and then we can call it.
Yeah, I already found a way to chip in. That was about the parents, trying to put their kids in schools that they cannot afford. Like we said here, everything has grade, even in the United States. You want to go to Ivy League and you don't have scholarship, you pay more. And if you think that you want your kids to go to a public school, then you buy your house in a better neighborhood where the taxes are used to provide more benefit for children in school. So everything has its grades. So if you in Nigeria, and it's so common that they say, no, it's your children. And when they become who they become, it benefits you, not me. Yes, it will benefit the community, but it's you. They may not give you money back, but you have the benefit of pride. It's in law, It's called gratuitous benefit that you get from that. So I don't have any benefit out of it, so why should I do that and take money out of my own family to support you to raise your kids? So I'm just saying that with the board, that's if you think that, and the thing they say, most of them say is that, oh, the public school is bad. I say, okay, if the public school is bad and you don't have money, at least your child is in a school and the child is moving forward gradually while you go and work hard, maybe get more money, maybe improve your skills, maybe improve your services. The only way to make money is the quality of your service, the quantity of your service, and the difficulty of changing you, of replacing you. That is the only way to make maximum money. Microsoft or Apple, quality, quantity, and the difficulty of the users to replace Apple for Samsung. That's why they keep making that money and they don't bring it down, because they know what they have. So if you think that you want the best for your kids, you have to do better. If you cannot do that because of the situation, go to what the government has provided and then maybe augment it with lesson later in the evening, and you don't have to pay 50,000 for a young man to come and teach your kids in the evening. You know, so I just think that this is an opportunity, and for us to just let people know that it's not right for you to allow your kids be sent out of school because you can't pay, because you are exposing them to lack of money too early. And then they start going into this Yahoo. They want to do it themselves. They don't like this embarrassment. And you, the parents, you are out there because you don't want your neighbor seeing your children going to public school. You cannot take that for your children. Take the sacrifice. Put them in public school. They will continue. In 2 weeks, they will forget that they went to private school. They will have friends. They move on. They continue their thing. But most parents don't see it that way. They would rather prefer to be begging the principal, but I'll bring the money tomorrow. I'll bring them, and they are kicking their kids out. And then in the future, you say, oh, why is the kids all just looking for money? Because you have made the kids understand that lack of money is detrimental to them. It's psychological. It's scarred them psychologically. So that's why I think this education thing will really help.
And on that note, I would like to end this session, this meeting on education. I would just say that I think that there is an opportunity for us to begin to get it right from the educational standpoint in Nigeria. And I believe that if all of this can be achieved from the educational standpoint, I think that we stand a better chance in raising Nigerians that will critically think to solve problems, because the whole idea of education is to solve problems, as compared to a conformist type of education, which is just garbage in, garbage out. I want to thank Yetunde Yusuf, as always, our education expert, because next week again, you are going to remove this education part. We are going to healthcare. Yeah, our healthcare person. We also have another healthcare person in the group. We'll try to bring that person on. So all this education she's talking about, she will completely do like a U-turn, reverse, as I'm talking about healthcare. And also thanks to our judiciary person that interprets, the judiciary interprets the law. So all of these beautiful conversations we are having is the one that we sit down and write the regulations and the policies. So if those parents want to carry the board of education in Ideal North or Idemili South, or Aba North, wants to carry them to court to go and say, hey, we need to kick you out. They're like, no, you're not going to kick us out. These are the people that put it in place, so I want to appreciate them. And from my humble self, I would like to appreciate everyone for tuning in. There are a lot of beautiful comments, even though they're either positive or negative. It's all welcome. It's all part of it. We hope that you guys learned one thing or the other today. And next week is going to be on healthcare. Healthcare is also part of the human development. When you look at Human Development Index, because when you want to grade nations as to which nations are the best, where can you live and all of that, you have to look at the healthcare, you have to look at the education, and you have to look at the standard of living. Those three are very important. So now, I would say we've been talking basically about the standard of living with agriculture, security, the economy, power, oil and gas, transportation. Now we've come to education. We've spoken about education. So next week is going to be on healthcare. Like I always say, we're always going to be here. Tell your friends, your enemies, your protagonists and or antagonists that we are here to explain what is here on this manifesto, Pitch the Plan, Renewed Hope 2023. And on that note, I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. God bless everyone. And we'll do this same time next week again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice
You too.
day.
Bye, everyone.